Clark here with the hospitality interviews, and today my pleasure to introduce you to my friend and colleague Greg Friel. Greg, we got to know each other through the networking circuit here around Glasgow. Yeah, a few years ago now, must be 3-4 years ago.
Yeah,
thereabouts.
yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
And today, Greg, going to be having a bit of a conversation about the the marketing and social media side of your business. But just for me to introduce you to today's audience, your proper job, if we like, but often referred to in that way. Your main career was in the music industry, both in as an artist and as a music producer. How did that flow then into the work that you now do in the world of marketing and media?
I think it's kind of almost one and the same, because at the end of the day, you're in the media industry. Everything about being in the music industry is you're creating content, you're creating awareness. It's all about marketing. It's all about creativity, and all of those tools that you use in that world are equally as transferable to traditional marketing. It's just the style and the tone of it is going to be slightly different depending on what the the brand is that you're dealing with. And on many years ago, back in the day, I mean, I did a business degree and all that kind of stuff before I actually ended up in the music industry, because I mean, music is my first love, to quote the old song, and it's my passion. But I'm equally as passionate about anything creative. So what I like to say that I do for businesses is that I come up with creative solutions to business problems. So I like to, and my experience is, away from the corporate world. It's in a completely different industry. So what I do when I come into whatever that business is that I'm looking at things from a completely unique perspective. I don't have any preconceived notions about how your business runs or whatever, apart from, I'll have obviously do my research into that. But I think an awful lot of people, whenever they do these kind of things, or if they're doing coaching or consulting, they come with a set of solutions, and as opposed to, let's look at what the actual problem is and kind of diagnose that appropriately. So with me, it's about looking at things and from a different perspective, but then let's look at it in a creative way and find something that's, what can we actually do here that's going to be different and going to make a difference.
It's really interesting, and something in particular you mentioned there, Greg, that really resonates with me. The fact that you come at things from a different perspective, and I guess that creative side from your musical love will really help with that. It's a lot of the audience who are going to be watching this within my connections are people in the hospitality world. And I certainly recognize that especially within the hotel sector, where I spent a lot of my corporate life, we tend to be, and it's a bit controversial this, but I'm going to say it anyway. We tend to be quite blinkered. If you haven't worked in hotels, how can you give me advice? How can you help me? And I kind of encounter the same thing, because my experience is in the hotel world, not necessarily I've got a little bit of experience in pub and restaurant, but not a huge deal. And I meet the same resistance there. Oh, you worked in hotels, you don't know restaurants. And I just find that's such a blinkered outlook, because like you say, we encounter a lot of people, advisors, who stick to that same method. This is what we always do. And just because you've always done it doesn't mean it's right. I in my operational life, I always embraced people with different viewpoints and from a different background, because it just gives you a fresh perspective.
No, absolutely. And the thing is with me is that my experience, I mean, it's dead easy to say a catch-all of working in the music industry, and people have certain preconceived notions about what that may be. But, there's the glamorous side to that, and, and that's all fun and exciting. But then there's the, years of singing in pubs and restaurants and clubs and all of that side of things, where, I've seen behind the scenes there and all behind the curtain, and in the kitchens and all that kind of thing, because that's probably where I was getting changed before I went on and did the show. So in terms of experience in hospitality, I've actually been part of that hospitality world, just in a slightly different guise, really. And in a lot of ways, that's the same with almost any industry, because there's always been some music aspect to it or some entertainment aspect to it. So you end up really crossing out paths with so many different people, and dipping your toes into loads of different worlds along the way.
So true, so true. And I remember us, one of the first one-to-ones that we had, you were kind of spelling out, the music industry is not all Simon Cowell and X Factor.
No.
Far from it. So, Greg, turning to the work that you do with clients in terms of media, and particularly social media.
Yeah.
One of the questions that I've been hearing most frequently recently, when I'm talking to people about their sales strategies, their sales and marketing plans, and I think it equally applies to their social media content. A lot of people have been saying to me, what's the point right now? What's the point in having a sales plan? What's the point of me having a social media strategy? Because my business is closed. Now, I know my answer to that. We were discussing it just before we came on the interview, but what's your take on what's the point in bothering right now because my business is closed?
I think the thing when it comes to, this is something we've spoken about a lot, Barry, that if you're not selling, or if you're not able to sell just now, then you're branding and you're consolidating, you're creating awareness. And whether, certainly there's people in the travel industry, I'm like, well, you're not encouraging people to buy holidays just now, but what you can do is offer tips and help, and be that person that's helping them to kind of see what's the latest news in terms of travel restrictions or whatever. Become a trusted voice in that area. But in terms of like hospitality, if it's restaurants or bars and that kind of thing, it's it's creating awareness, but expectation. You want to, when those doors do open again, you want to be absolutely inundated, with people who are just like, I've been dying to come back here. I've been seeing the pictures that you've been posting, and sharing memories and that kind of stuff. And it's creating that expectation, that desire for people to come back to your place, and also letting people know that you are still open as a business. The doors might be shut temporarily, but you're still alive as a business. And I think that's quite an important thing for people to see. It's if you just have your Facebook page set to closed, you just now, it's kind of like, whoa, okay, have they shut down? And obviously there's going to be an awful lot of people where that is the case, but I think if you are planning on reopening, then create that expectation so that people are going to be knocking down your door to be there whenever you do.
It's a really, really, really good point. You remind me a conversation that I was having just a week or two ago with someone that as well as I do, with Colin Shaw in the travel world. And we were having exactly that conversation. We were having a bit of an aspirational chat about holidays. Colin had arranged a fantastic trip for us last year, which inevitably we had to cancel.
Yeah.
And his exact point to me when we were talking a week or two ago, he said, look, don't even think about booking anything at the moment. It's too soon. But keep the ideas fresh in your head and we can talk about stuff. I'll advise you when it's the right time to start seriously thinking about it.
And that's all that trust, and you've got that relationship with them, and then whenever the time is right, who are you going to pick up the phone to? And
exactly, who are you going to pick up the phone to? And it's no different from anybody in a retail world, in a hospitality, in a kind of wholesale and business world. If you were, let me fire the question, Greg, put you on the spot a little bit. If you were a restaurant owner, a hotel owner at the moment, and that we're nearly there, we're maybe 6 weeks, 7 weeks away from being able to open the doors again. And if experience from the last lockdown is anything to go by, there will be a huge surge of demand when you reopen the doors. And then inevitably after a few weeks, it'll tail off. It'll go back to kind of what the old normal used to be like. But in those first few weeks, there's likely to be a huge surge in it, because we're all pent up. We all just want to get out and have a coffee, have a beer, get out of the four walls that we've been sat in for a good couple of months now. What would be your advice if you're the person controlling the social media accounts for that bar or that restaurant? What would you be thinking about now in terms of building that awareness, getting the message across of, right, we're here, we'll be there soon, we'll be open again soon?
Well, I think, one thing to, I think an awful lot of people actually don't consolidate the audience they already have. They don't look at their existing customers and go, okay, these are the people who've supported us for years. Let's not lose sight of them, and let's,
Mm,
whether you have an email mailing list or whatever, it's reaching out to them and letting them know, hey, we haven't forgotten about you, and not just constantly kind of looking for the new client. So if you do have that email mailing list and your existing customer, then absolutely you want to reach out to them. But then creating that expectation for when you do open, that yes, you're going to see the familiar. I think this is a very interesting thing that's happened across the board in media, with everything to do with the whole COVID side of things, because life has been so bizarre and so strange and unsettling. So many people have looked for comfort from the familiar and nostalgic. So there's been an awful lot of interest in, programs that were popular when in our childhood and growing up and that side of things. So in the same way, let's not lose sight of the things that are cozy and familiar that people are, looking to get back to from, pre-COVID. And these are the things that, people are really, really wanting to see. So if that's, like, an ever popular dish or something like that that you would serve in your restaurant, or an experience that you would normally have in your hotel, we're bringing this back. We're bringing it back to this, and
yep.
creating that expectation and that familiarity. Like, we can't wait to feel that way again, and to make you feel that way again. And it's that expectation, and you only get that by being incredibly consistent on your social media strategy, posting on a regular basis, and not being salesy, not just, this is only $9.95. It's about what's the experience. And it's, especially now, it's all
Yep.
about emotions and making people feel something, and people want to have cozy, warm, friendly, familiar experiences, and something that isn't the insanity that is the current, world that we live in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anything that's aspirational, that's leading them back to that, or is familiar and warm and cozy, then yes, that. And like I said, don't lose sight of your existing customers,
Mhm.
and don't just be chasing the new. It's welcome them back into the fold, as it were, and then expand from that.
No, you're so right, Greg. I think there's so much in what you say there. Um, I'm really intrigued in the nostalgia factor that you mentioned there. I think I think our society in general, we all have that nostalgic, attraction in us, in our somewhere. Whether it's back to our childhood, whether it's back to our adolescent days, things will always draw us back to it. And of course, now with the COVID situation, I guess all of today's current society, we've got a common thing that binds us all together, that we've lived and worked through the last, well, 12 months as it is now, and probably, realistically another 6 months, probably at least, until we get back to a semblance of normality.
Mhm.
And that's the thing. Maybe it's a slightly controversial view. I don't think we're ever going to go back to normality. I don't believe life's going to go back to just how it was in December 2019. It's going to be a new normal. I know that's one of those buzz phrases that people
Mhm.
hate. Um, it'll be kind of like life was before, but I think inevitably, having spent 15, 18 months in these kind of restrictions, um, life will be different. I don't know how enthusiastic I am to be back in be back at a music gig at the Hydro with 14,000 other people in a confined space.
Mhm.
I think it's going to take quite a long time to reassimilate to that
I'd be
kind of
perfectly happy if I was on the stage, but
environment.
but not necessarily in the audience.
I got thinking about that just the other day. There was a Bradley Walsh's show that was on Monday night on STV, and he had a one-to-one with Andrea Bocelli, and
Yes, we saw it. Yeah.
you saw it. I mean, I find that amazing. Primarily, there's the link there because the last big kind of gig concert that we went to was Andrea Bocelli at the Hydro.
Right.
Not last year, but the year before.
Hmm.
And that, for me, that was a real bucket list item for me.
Sure.
I got bought the tickets as a treat for my birthday, and that was a real bucket list. If I never see him again, I never see something like that again, I've sat and Andrea Bocelli has sung live in front of me, and I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it now. And I think the nostalgia factor, the remembering even what was just happening in 2019, 2018, you're right. I think that will be huge moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. We want to grasp some sense of just doing ordinary things, things that we took for granted before. And yes, there is going to be the new normal, and I certainly don't think, for example, the world that we met in terms of the networking world, that's not going to be anything like that.
That's going to
There's
be
no
really
way I am ever going to a breakfast networking meeting ever again when I can crawl out of bed and get on a Zoom call. And I don't have to jump in the shower, get myself sorted, and drive somewhere to have some lukewarm coffee. No. I'm quite happy with my Nespresso machine. So
indeed, it's funny, we probably had the conversation 2 years ago. I really would have been in the category of, you've got to do everything face to face. I've got to go and see my clients face to face. I've got to network with people face to see them in the white of the eyes. And the last year I've always been a bit of a technophobe. I'm not at the cutting edge of technology. I've always been a kind of reluctant embracer of things. February, March 2020, I just got on board with Zoom. I knew that I had to. I used it back then, but very occasionally, and I didn't particularly like it. But I knew this time last year, embrace it. This is the way forward. Fast forward now, I don't particularly want to go back.
That's kind of the way I feel. I mean, certainly, because I'm doing more consultancy now, work for me consists of this. And I'll be on to a client anywhere on the planet. Depending on having sensible times in terms of time changes and all those kind of things. Because of the nature of what it is that I do, the advice is just, it's going to be very similar in terms of, the dynamic of what we're talking about, and the business challenges that we're all facing are similar. Things that are going to be different are going to be particular to each industry, and to the location and all those side of things. But I think the great thing has been the fact that people aren't as resistant to the notion of doing this. So to be able to charge for consultancy, there's certainly, there was a couple of friends of mine kind of like, should I charge the same as what I'm like, yeah. The only difference is, the fact that you're not having to travel there. You're giving them the same value in terms of what the information that you're imparting to them. So, so I think in terms of those barriers have certainly come down, but I think it's taken time for people to adjust and then go, oh no, it's actually okay. There's still, an inherent value in this no matter what.
And and in some cases there's an additional value. I was on just this morning was doing a coaching call with one of my clients. They're based in the Borders. Now, in the old life, that would have been me traveling for an hour, them traveling for an hour. We usually met somewhere halfway in the middle. We didn't have any of that this morning. You say, 9:30 on a call, and
you're fresher for it as well. You haven't done the travel and that side of things, and then you can just get straight into it.
And I find that very much so.
I love it. I mean, and I don't anticipate going back to doing networking in the other way, really. I mean, there'll be some people who I want to see, obviously, and there's that human aspect to it. But so much of the networking, there are networking events that I go to now that are all over the place. But I wouldn't be able to go to them normally. And there's some of my favorite things that I go to online, and I think that's a great kind of microcosm for the whole thing.
Absolutely. I firmly believe that the kind of a hybrid style of networking is what will come on the other side of this. The occasional face-to-face meeting, maybe once a month, once a quarter, and still the regular catch-ups over Zoom or any of the other teleconference platforms. I firmly believe that will be the way forward. And I, like yourself, I don't intend to go back to my old way of working of 500 miles a week in the car and dashing around here, there, and everywhere. It's just not productive. It wasn't time efficient, costing me a fortune. You're lucky if I do 100 miles a week in the car now. I used to be doing 100 miles a day. So it just makes
literally, there's been, days at a time where the car has moved. I'm just like, I don't need to go anywhere. Fine, I'm not going anywhere.
Absolutely.
And we're being sensible, as we should. But there's aspects to what I do, or what I've traditionally done, to earn a living, that I can't do just now because of the nature of things. And some of them I don't miss, and some of them I won't be going back to. So when March hit last year, I was like, okay, fine, that's that done. I will never go back to doing that. And then there's other things I'm like, I miss doing that. I miss doing conferences and business events where I would get people singing and involved in that sort of things, because I'm a show off, and I need that to have that's a huge part of my personality, to have that kind of outlet. And I'm a people person, and I love to have that kind of audience engagement, and that's something that can't really be replicated online. And although I've kept doing Zoom choirs and stuff online with some of the charities that I work with, that's really been more about the psychological benefits of that, rather. It's not a musical thing, because with the limitations of Zoom, trying to do anything musical is just a car crash. It sounds awful, but we've been able to keep those groups going, and everybody's just been able to benefit from it from the psychological perspective, and we're staying connected. So I'm looking forward to getting back in the room with people and being able to do that kind of side of things. But there's an awful lot that I'm kind of like, what, I'm quite happy being able to do this side of things from here. And I can I literally, just before I came on here, I just jumped on a call with somebody. They just messaged me and they said, Greg, do you have some time to chat at some point? And I phoned them straight away, rather than arrange something. And they were like, oh, that was really, really super quick. And then literally in 15 minutes, I just, we sorted an awful lot for them. Brilliant. And they're like, I'm so pleased I've had this conversation, because this has actually helped clarify a few things for me. And I think, it's responding to, the benefits of technology, the fact that you can be in contact with somebody and get back to them straight away if you need to. And that isn't a travel related thing. It's just like you're literally on the other end of a video call.
Only last week I was in a virtual networking group. 2 people in Canada, 3 people in the States, somebody in Norway, and 3 or 4 others that were here in the UK. Now that would never have been feasible in the past. Am I suddenly going to be selling books and doing conferences in the States? No, but you never know where that might lead. 6 months time, 12 months time. Awareness. Precisely. And the beauty, I can do that from sitting at a desk now. I can even deliver a seminar, or deliver a keynote section to a virtual conference, sitting right here in Airdrie. I
think the thing is as well, and speaking about myself more specifically, I think, from a local business networking perspective, people might have certain expectations of who they think I am and what it is that I do. So this has enabled me to pivot and literally go, right, fine. This is my opportunity to clearly define me doing this. And so then people go, all right, you're that guy, as opposed to just that guy. So whenever I meet most people at these new networking events, they see me as the marketing guy. They don't see me as the guy who goes on about his hair all the time.
But you still go on about your hair.